Good day everybody, my name is Daniel, and in today's video we're going to be going through part 2 of object-oriented programming in Delphi. And again, this video is really meant for people who are still in grade 10 and maybe grade 11, but as a matriculant you should know these concepts really well, but it wouldn't hurt for you to go through them again is what I meant to say. So I'm just gonna be making a little example, right, where basically we're gonna be creating an employee class, right, a little something different from what we did in the original video, right, and this should help you kind of get the grasp of objects and object-oriented programming. Okay, so just to run through what I'm going to be doing, right, because I don't want to be explaining each and every single detail, because I already kind of did that in the first video, and I'm kind of going to be going very fast, but a lot of the concepts that I'm going to be covering, I've already gone through them in the first video. Okay, so I'm going to rush, and if you guys haven't watched the first video, click on the video right now. Okay, click on it, go watch that video, and then after that come back to this video. Okay, but if you already know about OOP, then this is the video for you. Okay, please like and subscribe. Let's get into the video, guys. Okay, the link is in the description for the source code, by the way, source code on GitHub. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So we're in Delphi right now. Okay, what you have to do is just click on File, New, and click on Console Application. We will be working on the console application again. We'll be working on a console application. I'm gonna write read line, and I'm gonna write line just to make sure that my application works. Running. I'm gonna click on save. I'm gonna name my project Delphi classes employees 3. Okay, open that and save that in there, and I'm gonna run. I have an issue. I'm gonna fix my syntax error, and it says running, so everything should be up to par. So without further ado, I'm gonna create file, new, and create a new unit like we did the last time. I'm gonna save this new unit, and I'm gonna save it as employee. So employee, because this time we're making an employee program. So just to give you guys a little rundown on what we're actually going to be doing, we're going to be creating an employee class, right, and that class is basically going to the only real difference is that in this program we're gonna let the user actually insert the name and surname of the employee instead of it being created or typed in. As you remember, we typed it in the last time. So this time we're gonna get the user to actually insert it through the terminal itself. Okay, and then we're going to be doing something called generating a random number. We're going to generate their staff number, and their staff number and their names together will be used to be outputted to the screen once the user has inserted the values of this employee. And really that's it, right? So this is a very simple question that you should be able to execute if you're asked this in an exam, and mind you, they do ask these sort of questions in exam. Okay, and that'll be the last time I rant, and let's get into it. So I'm gonna create a type. I'm gonna say t employee equals a class. I'm gonna say private, public, and inside of public I'm gonna say f name. I'm gonna give first name and last name. F first name, which is a string, f last name, which is a string. I'm gonna give it a f staff number, which is an integer. And in the public we're gonna create the constructor. we're gonna give it the first name, last name, and stuff number, which is an integer. And there we go. What else are we going to be doing? We want to be able to set the first name and the last name, and we also want to be able to get them back. Okay, so I'm going to say accessors would be okay, accessors are getters, and then mutators are setters. So we want to be able to first set, so we're going to write a function. So we're going to do a procedure, right? Because procedures don't return any types. So procedure, so we're going to set names. So I'm going to say set names. I want to be able to set both the name and the surname at the same time. Okay, I'm not going to be setting the staff number because that one is going to be generated for us, right? Let me have my sip of tea. Tastes good. And we're gonna pass in first name, which is a string, and last name, which is a string. We're gonna be setting that. Another thing that's the only thing we're gonna be setting really. Everything else is kind of like getting. However, okay, let's write our getters, right? Which are our accessors. So the only thing we're gonna be getting is the get all the details, right? So it's a function. I'm gonna say get details, and getting details, we don't pass in anything, but we do return a string. Okay, so yeah, that's basically what's going to be happening. So we're gonna also create a function that generates a stuff number. Function generate stuff number, and this is gonna return an integer. Okay, so I think these are all the functions that we're going to be creating. These are all the functions that we're going to be writing: the create, the get details, the generate stuff number, and the set names, right? So like I said, we're going to set the names with this function, but also at the same time we're going to also be able to set the names with the create function. Okay, and I know this sounds counterintuitive, but I'm just trying to keep this example as simple as possible, so things can get very complicated. Like I could have two create functions, and I just don't want to deal with that right now because it can really get complicated. So right now let's just create the create function and also the set names function. Okay, let's start with the create, right? So implementation create. Okay, so let's start with that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say constructor t employee dot create, and it generates all of that stuff for me. I'm going to create a begin and an end, and in here what we're going to do is we're going to pass in all the variables. Okay, so I'm going to pass in the first name, the last name. Okay, so I'm going to say f first name is set to the value of first name, and f last name is set to the value of last name. Okay, and when it comes to the staff number, we need to actually generate the staff number, right? But actually we're not going to be passing the staff number to the constructor. I'm going to remove that, right? Excuse me. So Now for the staff number, well, we're not going to be passing it, that's for sure. That's my bad. Okay, bear with me, guys. So this is what we have, right? We're not going to be passing the staff number. Staff number is basically going to be empty when we create the class, but we actually do need to generate it, right? But before we can have it here, we are going to have to implement this function called generate staff number, and then the create method will be able to use it to store it inside this private member variable. Okay, so let's create that function. Implement the generate staff number. So we're gonna say function t employee dot generate staff number, which is an integer, begin and end. And this generate staff number, we're gonna call a function called randomize, like that. And then with this function, we're gonna call another function called sorry about that. I got confused for a second. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a variable here, because we want to store that number inside of a variable, and then we want to output that variable. Okay, without any further ado, what we're gonna do here is that we're gonna create a variable, and we're gonna store the random number inside of the variable, and then we're gonna export it, right? We're gonna release it, we're gonna result it. Okay, so in the variable section, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say r random value. It's gonna be an integer, right? And underneath here, I'm gonna say random value is set to the value of random range, and we're gonna give a number. We're gonna generate a number, a 4-digit number. So a 4-digit number should be anywhere between 1000 and 999, right? 9999. So I'm gonna do exactly that, 1000 and 999, like that. So we want a number in between these values here. Okay, now the reason my random range, it says undeclared random range, is because random range is not, it's the computer doesn't know what random range is. So random range actually belongs to a family. Now if I go back to my project, underneath the uses, I'm gonna say that this is a comma, and I'm gonna say system.math. Okay, so system.math houses this value called random range. Okay, so now we can be able to use it, and if we don't, we will fix it promptly. And then I'm gonna say result is set to the value of random value. Okay, so now this value called randomize, we don't actually need to call it here. We can also take it back into the project and call it right there at the very beginning. Okay, so if I run this, we have an error, and it says undeclared random range. So I think we have to actually have the system.math inside of employee. So I'm gonna say uses system.math. Okay, and we get an error. I need to fix this, so I'm gonna pause for a second and actually fix this issue. There's something I think I'm not doing correctly, and I'm unsure of what that is. Oh, okay, no, I fixed it. So your uses needs to go underneath the interface. So I guess nothing really goes above the interface. Okay, so your uses goes underneath the interface, and once you import this, now we can use the random range. So now that that's complete, let's continue creating our other functions. Okay, we're done with the generate stuff number. Oh, actually, since we wrote the generate stuff number, we can now call this function inside of the create function. So inside of what's this, f stuff number, right here, I'm gonna say f stuff number is set to the value of stuff, sorry, it's set to the value of generate. We're gonna call this function generate stuff number, like that. So this stuff number has now been filled based off of this generate stuff number function. So whenever we call this generate stuff number, it calls this, and that basically generates a random value for us, and it returns the random value. So this is now equals to a random value. Okay, so let's continue creating our other functions. Let's go to get details, which is a function and returns a string. I'm gonna go ahead and say implement the what's the name, get details. So as function t employee dot get details, which is a string, I'm gonna begin and end. Okay, so there we go. So now what we want to do here with the get details is that we just basically want to get the details. We just want to basically get the details of the employee. Okay, then we just want to return it in a nice format, so that it's actually readable. Okay, so what I'm going to do is that I'm going to declare a string first as a variable, var, which is an s output. Hope you guys can read that. And this is a string, and we're basically going to set the s output to the first name. First, we're going to say first name is plus, I'm going to use a concatenation, which is a plus. I'm going to say f first name, and I'm going to have another plus there for concatenation. I'm going to have a space there, and then I'm going to say last name. I'm going to have a comma and say last name is concatenation f last name, and I'm going to have a concatenation again and add another string and say comma and say staff number is, I'm going to take it up a little bit. Can I do this? Yes, I can. Staff number is f staff number, like that. Okay, and this should be okay. Let me see, let me run this. So let's see, okay, I get an error. It says f staff number, gives me an error. I already know what the problem is. F staff number is an integer, and we're storing this whole thing inside of a string, so we want to type cost. So I'm gonna say string, I'm gonna say int to string type cost the f staff number and put it inside the braces, and this should be okay, I think. Let me see. No, I get an error. Into string doesn't accept that. I wonder why. Undeclared into string. Oh, it says into string is undeclared. So I think what's supposed to happen is that I need to have system.sysutils also underneath here. Yes, I'm gonna do this, have a comma there under after system.math, have a comma since we're adding more, and then I add system.sysutils, and then if I run that, let's see if we have another error. Yes, so the error that we had originally had disappeared. The into string error disappeared, and the reason why is because we added that system.sysutils, so it relies on this. Okay, since we're in a new unit, and now we have an error because we just haven't implemented this yet. Okay, so what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna remove all these parameters right here, okay, and also these braces, and what we're gonna do is that we're gonna now write the implementation here at the end. Implement the set names, and we're gonna say procedure t employee as usual equals to set names begin and end employee dot set names, right? Like that, right? Mind the spelling. Okay, so now we're just gonna prompt the user to insert the values, right? So I'm gonna create a write line and then prompt the user to give us input, and then after that I'm gonna ask for the surname or the last name, and then after that we set our variables. Okay, so before that I'm gonna create two values. I'm gonna say var, I'm gonna say s first name and s last name, and those are both strings, right? So let's get that information from the user. So first let's prompt write line. I'm gonna say enter your first name, or enter the employee's first name rather. Okay, I'm gonna have a colon there, and I'm gonna add a s line break. So this basically is just gonna take the cursor to the next line, s line break, and then I'm gonna take in the input. So I'm gonna say read line, and I'm gonna take it in as they've inserted the s first name. Okay, and we're gonna do the same for the last name as well. I'm gonna pass in that, and we're gonna say last name and s last name, like that. And then now we set the values. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say f first name is set to the value of s first name, and f last name is set to the value of s last name, like that. Okay, and just like that we should have everything that we ever need. Let me run that, and it says running because nothing ever happens, and we just need to start calling these functions inside of the main program. So now in the main program, so let's remove this running, and let's start off by creating the variable, right, before we instantiate. Okay, the variable for our employee object will go such as we'll just name it emp1, which stands for employee 1, and this is of the type employee, right? And I don't know why we have an issue. Okay, it's of the type T employee, not employee. Okay, and now let's instantiate the object. Okay, so like what we're gonna do is that we're gonna say emp1 is set to the value of T employee dot create, right? We're creating the object, and we're gonna pass in the first name and the last name. Okay, I'm gonna say Daniel, I'm gonna say Jumpman. There we go. So now we've successfully created the object, and if we run, we can see that we don't have any issues. And then now we want to call in the set names function, right? So what I'll do is I'm going to say emp1.setNames. What that's going to do, if I run it, it's going to prompt the user. So there we go. It says enter your employee's first name. I'll say Frank. Enter your employee's last name. I'm going to say Sinatra. And then if I enter that, nothing happens because we didn't tell it to do anything. Okay, so since now we've called set name, what we're going to do next is that we want to print out a message saying these are your details, right? We already created that function. Okay, so all you need to do is just call it. So I'm just going to say emp1 dot get details, and let's run that again. Let's enter our employee's first name. I'm gonna say it's Frank, last name is Sinatra. Enter. The get details method doesn't do anything. Let's see what we did wrong, right? So now we want to sort out and see what the problem is. So the get details is right here. As you can see, we have as output, it stores everything, but we actually don't print out anything that comes from the get details. So get details returns a string, so the string is as output. We need to return that. Okay, so we're just gonna say result is set to the value of as output. Okay, so we have result set to the value of as output, and all we have to do is just print it out. Okay, so get details, now we just have to write line, right, and we're just gonna write out the s details, and there we go. Let's run that again. Hopefully we get some success with this time. We're gonna say Frank Sinatra, enter, and then there we go. First name is Frank, last name is Sinatra, and then staff number is 8998, and 8998 is the number that got generated for us by the computer. And guys, this is basically it. This is a simple working demonstration on how you can work with object, how you can use object-oriented programming to create objects and to make things very easy for you, right? And why is it easy? Because now with EMP1 I can go ahead and create EMP2 and so on and so forth, and I can keep on doing whatever it is that I want to do. It makes coding seamless, and that's why they test it very heavily, not just in high school, but when you get to varsity, you're also going to be tested on these concepts, right? Not just in computer science, but if you're also doing engineering, you should expect to do a module in programming and stuff like that. So guys, this has been fun. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in another video where we're going to be doing VCL component programs. Right now we're moving away from console applications, we're going into the real thing where you should be expected to be tasked or asked in the actual examinations. Okay, like I said, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in another video.